we want to add new notes to the list. The notes we have here are still hard-coded. How can we do it? Which component or components are allowed to change our list of notes? Just app. Since it's the state of that component, it's the only component that's allowed to touch it. So we need to make a method that saves a new note. Right? Blank note, set current note, reset current note, save note. And like set current note, it's going to receive a note as an argument. But I will again use my fancy new property initializer syntax to make sure that the binding of this remains what I think it should be. So we're going to do what Todd said a while back. Make a copy of state, change that, and then set state to the new data. So it's this dot state dot notes, right? This object is what I'm changing. So I need to get a copy of that. I want a local variable called notes. And I want it to be, really I want it to be, if I said this dot state dot notes, that's not a copy. That's a reference. It's the same darn object. To make a copy of it, remember that new spread syntax we just learned? Well, here's another interesting use of that. You can use it to copy an object because it spreads it out into its individual pieces. And if you put that inside an object literal, you end up with a copy of it. You can use this on arrays too. Much nicer syntax for copying objects than what you have to do otherwise. So this makes a copy of an object. So now I have a local variable notes with a copy of this .state.notes. Then we're going to make some changes, and at the end, I'm going to call this .setState. And I want to say notes, notes, right? Notes is the property I'm changing. The new value is this notes variable. Guess what? In ES6, there's a new shorthand. If the value of a property just happens to be in a variable with the same name as the key, you can shorten this. Saying curly brace notes there is the same as saying curly brace notes, notes. Same thing. And this is one case where it's very common to use this shorter syntax. Because pretty much everyone using React is using Babel, so you don't have to worry about browser support. And you do stuff like this all the time. So, yeah, same thing. But I want to change that thing before I actually set the new state, right? So what do I want to do to it? It's not an array. I can't just push. Here's what the object looks like. To add something to the object, I would have to say notes dot something equals this new note, or notes square bracket something equals this new note. Did you do this, Ben? I mean, did you make the form do a thing? How did you add it to the object at the end?
Not a very good way.
Cool. So what are these keys in the notes object? They are strings. They're the IDs of each note, right? So basically, I want to say notes square bracket note.id, right? Whatever the ID is of this note, and set that to this note. Doesn't have an ID yet, but that's the idea. Heck, what would happen if we just did that? Well, I haven't called save note at all. Yeah. What's that? Note.id would be null. So I would have a key on there that would probably be something like the string null. Let's see. We can test it out. Go to the React DevTools. Make sure app is highlighted so that I have $R available. Let's make a new note, const note. Let's make sure I've refreshed the page so that's not still in memory. Const note equals ID null, title, whatever. Body, yep. $R is now app component. Save note. Pass in this note. There it is. All we did was update state with this new note, right? List takes care of itself. If that data is there, the list is going to render it, right? Just like magic. Question is, well, back in our DevTools, we can see our state, right? So here's state.notes. Note 1, note 2, and null. Yes, it has the key of null. Not great, but hey, it added the dang note, didn't it? Save note. Let's just make one up here. ID null. Title. Body. Just replaced it. It has the same key, right? So we need to make up an ID if there isn't one there. So first we'll check if not note.id. Set it to something. To what? Let's see here. Well, that's a good way to do this. We could, this isn't the most bulletproof way in the world, but we could just make a timestamp or something. Set note ID equal to date.now. Or to keep the same structure we had, note dash date.now. Whatever. I don't care. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you just do like object.keys, toss in the state notes, and then do a dot length off of that, and then get it bigger, and that'd be like an ID system?
As long as you don't delete any and make it smaller again. Yeah. Ideally, we'd have some kind of hash that runs this through, you know, generate some sort of hash out of this that is very unlikely to have duplicates. Yeah, as long as, if this becomes a multi-user thing and two people save one at the same, you know, it's not that remote a possibility that we could have duplicates. But as long as it's just one user, it's okay for now. We can come back and make it better. So if this works, let's see. Let's try it. Here we go. You excited? There it is. Let's look at our dev tools. Hey. Let's add another one. Hey. They're both there. With different IDs. Yeah. Cool. So, let's make the form do this. Need to pass down save note as a prop, don't we? We'll just add it to this actions object here. And it will automatically get passed down as a prop now, because we're using the spread syntax here. That'll take it to main. That's called save note. And we want to pass that on to note form. So it's getting current note right now. We also want it to get save note. And before I try to make it work, let's just double check that the prop is in fact making it all the way down using our dev tools. So in the React dev tools, I currently have app highlighted. I could try to climb through this tree and find the form, or there is a little search box here. Type form, aha, there's note form. Click it, I see props, current note, and save note. Yep, they're there. So in note form, I'm not going to do what the homework says. That's right. I am a rebel. I'm not going to have it add the note to the list when the form is submitted. I want it to add it to the list as soon as I start typing. So instead of an onSubmit on the form, I'm going to have an onChange on the input. I'm going to have it call a function I haven't written yet. Remember, this is actually a class. So outside the render function, I'll add a new method called handle change or handle changes. What did I call it last time? Handle changes. So onChange equals this dot handle changes, right? Because it is a class. The component, that is. Text area, I'll do the same thing. onChange equals this dot handle changes. So I want handle changes to call save note, right? So, that would be this dot props dot save note, right? I can just pass it a note. And the thing I'm changing is current note. Before we do this, let me get rid of these onChange things real quick. And let's check something out. Oh, yeah, by the way, how do you make a comment in JSX? In most contexts, yeah, if you want to add some JavaScript, you just add curly braces, right? So you put a JavaScript comment inside that. Now you can't use // you have to use /*. But I'll just retype it. In the middle of a tag like that, that may not work. So let's have our form, note form component selected again. Let's have a look at props.currentNote. If I start typing in the title, I can't. Anybody run into this? What gives? Because this is a controlled input and React is responsible for its value, value is going to be currentNote.title, but that is a one-way binding. Changes to the title will totally show up in the input, but you can't change that value by typing in the input. You can, however, trigger a change event. And in that change event, you can update the state or whatever it is that's bound to the input. So let's watch it happen. onChange, equal, handle changes. So we said this does receive an event-looking object. It's actually something React calls a synthetic event because React puts a little wrapper around the actual raw DOM event with some reactiness to it. But it does still have some of the things we expect, like target and current target and prevent default and all that kind of stuff. So let's check out console log event.target. Let's see what that is. AirPlay had behaved for too long, multiple days. Our break is coming soon. I'm going to check out event.target here. Handle changes is not defined. Right. Why not? This dot handle changes. This is a class. That is a method. Type. Oops, forgot to look at the console. Okay, it's the input. If I type in here, it's the text area. Because I know current note isn't getting updated with what I typed. But maybe I can get event target.value. Yep. So event.target again was the actual input. So I need to know which thing changed because I need to change it. I need a copy of the current note because I can't change that. It's a prop. So let's make a copy of the current note. Const note equals, how do I make a copy of it? First of all, the current note, I like your style. So it's this dot props dot current note, right? Use the spread syntax, this dot props dot current note, and I end up with a copy of it. So I can change the title or body accordingly. But how do I know which one to change? So the event target is the actual input or the text area, which, quick thinking on our part, have names. So I know, for example, event.target.name should be title. If I knew that event.target.name were title, I'm getting ready to ask a question, so pay attention. If I knew that event.target.name were title, how could I change the title of this note? Like, we know it right now, but we wouldn't know it when this function's running. I can't just write note.title. I need to get it out of event.target.name. How do I do it? How do I get to that property of note? There are two ways you can get to the property of a note, right? A dot or a square bracket. You can only use a dot if you know exactly what it's called, like dot title. If it's in a variable or something, you have to use square brackets. Now that I've basically told you the answer, what do you think? Lisa Marie, is that you talking? What do you think? One more time. Note, square bracket, what? The thing that's right above it. Event.target.name. Like I know event.target.name is either going to be the string title or the string body. So I can pass that in square brackets and set the value to event.target.value, which will be what we typed into whichever one. Then I can call this .props.saveNote and pass that note. We hope. We are, every time we type a letter. Hope it's fast. Okay. Let's check it out. Oh, okay, I did it once. Sweet. Oh, no, it didn't. It did it every time I typed a letter. Every one of those is a new note with its own ID. Shucks.
That's exactly what we want to do. After all, this is character herder, right?
Yes, character herder, that's right. What's the problem? Yes, that is the problem. But why is it doing that? Why is it doing what we don't want it to do? Yeah.
I mean, you're calling save note every time. Change happens, so you save the note every time.
Yeah, but let's look at save note. The way I wrote save note, I check if the note has an ID first. If it doesn't, only then do I set the ID to date.now. And I set it on the object based on its ID. So we can conclude that the note that's actually in current note that is on the form doesn't have that ID. It's a copy of it, right? In note form, I made a copy of the current note, changed its name, and passed that copy to save note. Save note added an ID to the copy and added it to this .state.notes. But this .current note is still the old one. This .current note never got changed. Make sense? Let's look at the state on our form real quick. Here's current note. I start typing stuff. Now apps, the list on app changed. Current note did not. So it still has a null ID. So every time I type a new letter, it's still going to create a brand new note. So we want that ID to make it back to the form. So in addition to setting the list of notes, I should probably also set the current note. To this note that I'm adding with the changes. Get it? So the form is always going to display whatever current note is. We changed current note by clicking on one of these. We changed current note by clicking on this, right? But typing in the form does not change current note. Typing in the form just calls save note, which updates this .state.notes, the list, but it never changed this .state.current note, and that's what the form shows. Yeah.
My thinking would be that you would have a separate method for updating the current
I make a one-line change and this does it for us. No reason it needs to be two methods.
Could you maybe break down how that one line
Here.
how adding that actually achieves that?
So what I have effectively done, what we had before, was this, right? So what I really did was add to the mix this dot set current note. And this dot set current note, and maybe that's what we should do, just in case set current note should do more than set state. But when you call set state, you can pass in more than one key, and every key that's in that object will get set on state. So this again is the same as notes : note. So I'm just adding to that current note : note. That's the way I did it, how I had it written a moment ago. Oops. But we could do it this way too, because that makes it clearer. Just make sure that the note that you just saved is also the current note, because this can change it by adding an ID. And anyway, in the form, we didn't set the title or body of current note. We set the title or body of a copy of it. So the one that's bound to the form doesn't have that new name yet either, the new title. Did we fix it? Oh yeah, we did. Tabbity, tabbity, tabbity. Oh, I can change these too. Why not? We get editing for free. Want to create a new one? We have a button for that already. Clear it out, add a new one. Yup. And this is suddenly nearly fully featured. Groovy. So we just made sure to set current note in addition to updating the list of notes, because current note is the thing that's bound to the form. It's been a long time since we committed. By the time we had create even working, because even create didn't work without that line. Even create didn't do the right thing until I added that set current note. So really, I didn't have to change anything to make it work for edit, because effectively you're always editing. You're just editing one with or without an ID. But if you want to make sure you get the ID back, you have to do what you would do to implement edit anyway. Also, how about we get rid of these silly placeholders now? Those were just there so we could go ahead and write out note list. Because we could do everything except make it add new notes with just hard-coded notes. But now we can have them all dynamic. Let's make sure that didn't break everything. Nothing in the list. We can still add things. Add as many things as we want. Everything's still good. Cool. How best to summarize what we did? Save notes from the form. Such a little message for kind of a big job. Load data in from the form when a note's clicked. Yup. Add a note to the list when the form is submitted. Yup. Don't have delete yet, but we have the plus button. All right. Break time. Take 10.